You only get one chance in our legal system to get a full and fair recovery, and you're going to do that better with the services of a lawyer.
If you're involved in a multi-car accident, do you know what you should do? Well, we're going to find out right now, because that's what we're going to ask the lawyer. Hi again, everybody. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com, and here to answer our questions is my guest, Merrida Coxwell, attorney from Mississippi. Merrida, good to see you again. Thank you, as always, for helping us out.
Thank you, Rob. It's always good to talk with you.
So this time of year, I got to think with rains and maybe wintry conditions, it's a ripe time in Mississippi for multi-vehicle accidents. Let's just start with your experience. What advice do you have for people to help avoid those kind of accidents?
Well, the best advice I can give you is slow down, slow down, slow down. We lawyers always like to say things 3 times or use 3 words. I've actually seen 4, I think, multi-car accidents within about the last month at an area in our town called the Waterworks Curve. Slow down. That's one of the best pieces of advice I can give.
So let's say somebody doesn't take your advice. There's a multi-vehicle accident. What is the process? I'm assuming it's different than just a 1-car versus 1-car accident.
It can be difficult trying to decipher who initially started the accident, but it's a fact pattern, and the lawyer or the investigator has to dig into it and try to determine who was the initial fault that maybe caused the pileup, and was anyone else contributing in that fault. It can be very difficult. You know, there have been pileups I've read about where they had as many as 30 or 40 cars, not often, but I've seen 4 or 5 cars recently in our area. And, you know, sometimes people, even when they're at fault, deny fault. So you just have to look at the physical evidence, see what people said on the scene. Sometimes we hire accident reconstructionists to get out there quickly and look at the scene and try to reconstruct, based on their experience, what happened.
You mentioned who's an initial fault and maybe who contributed. How does that work in Mississippi with contributory fault?
Well, the jury is entitled to weigh and apportion fault as they see fit, or as they are convinced by the advocates. So, I mean, you might have one person who started the accident, and you may have another that was following too closely, which is what oftentimes is the cause of many accidents, following too closely. And the jury would have to just apportion that fault. They may say 90% to the person that first caused the accident and 10% to maybe a second car. But, you know, it's a very, very fact determinative process when you have multi-car accidents.
But even if somebody feels like they're partially at fault, that doesn't mean they can't recover damages.
No, that's correct. They can recover damages. It's quite common in Mississippi. Cases that are handed down by our appellate court or Supreme Court, you see cases all the time where the jury has apportioned fault and put fault on, let's call it the minor person, 10, 15, 20%. And the damages that they're awarded are just reduced by that amount.
What if you determine, okay, the cause was the weather, maybe there's thick fog rolled in or a slick spot on the road. Does that change things as far as determining fault and anybody being able to recover?
So there are circumstances where a jury might find someone to not be at fault based on some, what we call act of God. Let's say some sudden wind burst that was powerful enough to cause an accident. But situations like fog and rain, generally, you are required under the rules of the road to operate your car in a safe manner based on all the conditions, which means slow down and be careful. I mean, all of us can witness this every day. People following other cars at 1 car distance or less. And it's crazy.
So let's talk about the multi-car accident. I'm involved in a multi-car accident. What should my process be? Do I try to get information from every vehicle involved? I mean, you always advise us take pictures and that sort of thing. Do I try to cover that whole thing? What's your advice?
Well, I mean, if you have the ability, if you're not seriously injured, you should absolutely try to acquire as much information as you can. Now, generally, police officers are going to show up and they're going to put everyone, or they should put everyone, on an accident report. I've got a couple accidents that I'm working now where the law enforcement officers left a lot off those police reports. They left off admissions of fault. So it is the best idea to obtain as much information as your health permits. I mean, if you're carried away in an ambulance, there's nothing you can do about it.
And what if there's a commercial truck involved, an 18-wheeler or something like that? Does that change the dynamics here?
Well, it does for the lawyer because there are more rules and regulations that apply to 18-wheelers or long-distance carriers, whether they're intrastate or interstate. But that's more of something for the lawyer to dig into. Those of us that handle those cases on a regular basis, we know what those rules and regulations are.
And is this the sort of thing, even without a commercial vehicle, but just a multi-car accident, is that the kind of thing somebody should try to handle on their own, or do you recommend they get a personal injury attorney to help them out through the process?
You know, you and I have had this discussion before, and I have said that when it's a pure fender bender and you don't have any injury at all, and when I say no injury, that is you've waited long enough to get checked out and to make sure you don't have a hidden injury that comes out in a few weeks or a month. Yes, I think you can settle some of these cases yourself. I know a lot of lawyers don't like me saying that, but it's true. I give people advice all the time on how to do it. But if you have an injury or you suspect you have an injury, in my opinion, you are better off getting the help of an experienced lawyer. He's going to be able to protect you more than you can protect yourself against an insurance company.
The insurance company, they're going to have lawyers on their side for sure.
They've got lawyers and they've got adjusters. And look, we all have insurance. So, I'm not trying to beat up on insurance, but we pay insurance to protect us if something happens. And if you're injured, the goal of the adjuster, not your own adjuster necessarily, but for the other person, is to save his company as much money as possible. And how does he save that money? By paying you less. And you only get one chance in our legal system to get a full and fair recovery. And you're going to do that better with the services of a lawyer.
Lots of great information as always, Merrida. Thank you for making some time to answer our questions.
You're welcome. I hope you have a good Christmas.
You do as well. That's going to do it for this episode of Ask the Lawyer. My guest has been Mississippi attorney Merrida Coxwell. Remember, if you want the very best information or you just want to make sure you can choose a lawyer that lawyers choose, make sure to go to askthelawyer.com first. Thanks for watching. I'm Rob Rosenthal with Ask the Lawyers.